Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Surviving UX podcast. I am Meg Kramer, and my co host is Jessamine Edwards. And my hopes for you this American holiday weekend: no waterfalls, no agile exercise, no rugby games to watch the scrums, and get out of the sun so you don't need to wear a con bonnet. Forget all about software development. And I don't know, Jessamine, what are you going to do this weekend?
I'm not going to be in a gross hotel room this weekend. I
Ooh.
probably stayed in one of the grossest hotel rooms this week to be close to the office, and I just felt like I'd hit almost like a new low.
Mm.
But yeah, so we're going to be at home, just celebrating at home. But this week, I checked into a hotel, and I stepped into the shower to take a shower, and the drain did not drain, so it
Oof.
just started to fill up. And there's
Mm.
something just extra gross about having the tub fill up while you're taking a shower.
Mhm, mhm,
And you're staring at sort of like crumbly edges of the shower and like
mhm.
peeling paint and
Yeah.
uh
And
it was it
and
was it was not good.
you didn't get the important notice that you had to bring your own Drano.
Oh my God. I was like, I could go buy a drain snake and like try to snake this hotel drain,
Ugh. Oh,
or I'll just tell the front desk. But
yeah.
they didn't do anything about it the whole time I was there, and I told them probably three times. And so I'm not going to stay in that place anymore.
Yeah, I
Yep.
think maybe
Yeah.
not.
It's
Maybe
extra
not.
gross. Yep. Anyway, so I had probably one of the most difficult weeks at work I've ever had
Mm,
in terms of working hours. I
hmm.
worked until 11:30 p.m. at the office one day this week
Hmm.
and got back to my hotel room at like 12, after 12, and got to sleep at like 2 a.m. and then had to wake up for a 8 a.m. call. And I was just so exhausted that I decided to take the day off on Friday. So today I'm taking a day off
Nice.
to recover from that. It was
Good.
kind of unnecessary, honestly, looking back, but
Look, unnecessary to spend
yeah.
all that time or
Yeah,
those
yeah,
do those
basically to
hours.
have, because this is the thing. Like, there's all this pressure to get this stuff done, but by the time I'm done, everyone who can actually code it is already on vacation because of the long weekend.
I
So there was
know.
no need for me to like hit the gas all week long to get all this design work done so that nobody could code it.
Yeah.
I feel really foolish, honestly. But anyway, yeah, I guess I haven't learned anything in 12 years of doing UX. So yeah, how about you? What's going on?
So someone at work just mentioned that like this is the time of year that people start like having vacations and not being
Hmm.
around. And it is true that sometimes
Right.
just like, oh, like now I don't have to think about this until this person gets back.
Gets back.
And yeah, and so like it is kind of good to know when people are in and out. I do hate the overwhelming like before you go on vacation, trying to do so much before you go.
Right.
And then getting back from vacation and feeling you, uh, like
You
maybe
burned
just the
yourself out
work.
for nothing.
Yeah. And the work just piled up. And now you're just like, okay, well, I guess I'm back.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
So yeah, I guess when you were talking about hotels, I was like, when was the last vacation that I took? I guess I went and stayed somewhere in the fall. So it wasn't that long
Mm.
ago. But I am jonesing a little bit to kind of like do some actual vacationing.
Yeah.
But we will see. We will see about that. So
Well, try to stay somewhere that's more than $200 a night, because apparently $200 a night does not
oh,
get you a hotel room with a bath and drains. Ah, well, today, you guys, we do have a very special guest. We are very pleased to welcome our guest, who is a user experience research professional with over a decade of experience. He has led user research at Zillow, Wells Fargo, Go to Research, Citrix, and Mobile Iron. He has a master's in HCI from Carnegie Mellon University with a dual degree from University of Madeira, Portugal. He is currently on a professional sabbatical and is focused on raising awareness of neurodivergence in the workplace. Please welcome Troy Effner.
Hello,
Hi,
Hi,
Troy.
Troy.
thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, thank you for coming on and also reconnecting with us. We have all three of us have uh been out of touch for a while, I feel. Well, I guess Jessamine and I haven't, but with you.
I'm
That's
just out of touch
true.
all the time. Troy, I'm very curious about your sabbatical. I mean, this is
Yes.
something that is really piqued my interest. So please tell
Mm-hmm.
us what led you to take the sabbatical, what made you realize you needed a sabbatical, and how's it going?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Lots of things to talk about, of course. So I guess the impetus to take a sabbatical clearly comes from the topic of the day, which is neurodivergence. Um, in this past year, I had been working uh, really hard at the principal level, trying to influence and persuade, as well as execute research, scope,
Mm-hmm.
execute, decide what is most impactful, all of those classic things that we talk about when being efficient in the UX world. And it all got a bit overwhelming. And
Mm-hmm.
what I realized in some conversations and feedback from my leadership was they were asking if what I was spending time on was the best use of my time.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And the things that I was spending time on and the things that nourish me really are the synthesis area and
Mm-hmm.
the building of behavioral models. And for me, it really fits into the way that my brain works. I love making these connections. I can see different dimensions to people's stories and bring them together and actually create really strategic understanding of user behaviors. It's something we're classically trained in at Carnegie Mellon with behavioral models and visuals. And the
Mm-hmm.
work that I did on this, under my definition falls under research. However, different companies have different definitions, and some folks were wondering if that was more of a design role. And we
Hmm.
could, of course, discuss
Interesting.
that. I know we could discuss that back and forth, I'm sure. But what it came to was, they asked Troy if you interested in being a designer because then we need to make that explicit.
Ooh,
Mm.
interesting.
And
Okay.
Okay,
and
tell
right.
me, I want you to pause because when you talk about behavioral models, I have a very vague understanding. So can you tell us what you mean when you say you're making behavioral models?
Sure, and that might be a bit prescriptive itself. Maybe an example I can tell you is from Zillow. Um, the real estate industry is super complex, and how people make decisions on what house they want to buy is
Mm-hmm.
actually really complex as well, right? And a lot of these online companies, all the real estate mortgage companies, they want to generate a number. What number can you afford?
Uh-huh.
250,000. But when I go into conversations with people about how they decide what they can afford, it's
Mm-hmm.
not as simple as a single number, 270,000.
Mm-hmm.
And what the industry is missing and forgetting is that people are making value decisions that are contextually based and based on the home itself. So, for example, if you buy a house near your parents, and let's suppose that you're a new family just starting, about to have a kid, and you buy a house next to your parents. Well, if you buy a house next to your parents, they might take care of your kids through the week, which means you have an extra $1,000 from what I hear. I don't have
Mm-hmm.
kids, an extra $1,000 that you can afford on a mortgage if you live in that zip code, if you live by your
For
parents.
for
Right.
my mine, it's 2,000 a month.
Okay.
That's what
I
it
I
would
was
love
be.
it.
gonna say like maybe a
Yeah.
thousand a
Yeah.
week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, but that's Troy exactly what I did. I live 5 houses down from my
Right.
parents.
But if you live in a different zip code, your math equation is all different,
Mm-hmm.
right? And the question is what do you value? Do you want that extra bedroom for your future child, or do you want to give up having a motorcycle? Was one of the stories I heard. And
Mm.
so it's really these value life trade-offs that are happening, and it's not as simple as a single number. Money is important.
Oh,
Do not get me wrong.
right.
But it's a decision and value, it's a value decision process that people are going through. Do I
I
want to
am
live?
resonating so much with what you're saying because Troy, when we were buying this house, I didn't even come inside and look at it. I
Mm,
bought it exclusively because of the location proximity to my parents. I
yep,
had my husband come look at it and he was
yep,
like, "It looks good." I was like, "Great, let's put in an offer." Like I didn't even care what
yep,
it looked like on the
exactly.
inside. I was like, "It's gonna be fine. It'll look like my parents' house." They all look
Exactly.
the same in this neighborhood.
But you're willing to make that trade-off, right? You're willing to find, there's a common term that's used in this industry called making it work.
Right.
And people will make it work if it meets their needs and their
Mm.
trade-offs, So,
So
and
I want to get back
Yeah.
to
yes, sorry,
Behavior
your
models.
apologies.
Oh,
decision. Well,
yeah.
So
I
I
feel
put
like
that into a
behavior models, I'm
visual.
sort of getting it because you're basically saying like there's a lot more nuance
Yeah.
than
And
just one
I, yeah.
dimension, but
And I
Right.
can see how people might think that's more on the design side. And I also just, like I've mentioned this before, I think, is that I have really always been like interested in research, and the same sort of thing has happened to me in the past, long past ago, of somebody being like, aren't you just a research, like, aren't you just wanting to be a researcher? Don't you just want to do that? Like, let's change what you do. And
Hmm.
so anyway, I am really curious to like what happened next.
Yeah.
Like, 'cause I feel
yes.
like
Yeah.
I've been in that situation from the other side.
I mean, honestly,
Yeah.
Troy, like you're describing a very cool job. It sounds like you're working at the principal level, you're doing this really high level thinking, high level work. Why walk away?
Well, you know, um, so number one, efficiency of business is one aspect there. They didn't really think of that as a researcher aspect, and they said if this is, if you want to have a conversation about design, let's talk about design. And if you were to ask me to design a business process for internal mobility and how a researcher would move over to be a designer, I would give you exactly what they gave me, and it would be, oh great, well why don't you find a design team that you can do project work for and
Mhm.
build up your design cred. And then when a head count opens up, you can apply for that head count and hopefully get that design job. And that makes a lot of sense to me. Spend 40% of your time on a design role and 60% of time on your day-to-day research role. But the crazy thing is, with my neurodivergent brain, dyslexia, 60% plus 40% does not equal to 100%.
Mhm.
Mm,
It equals 120 to 150%.
sure.
Because of
You're
the
basically just
context
doing two
switching.
jobs.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And of course, like with all good design, if you're trying to reach two things at once, that means both things are going to suck, right?
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So that really didn't match the way that my brain worked. And, through some career coaching, it just kind of dawned on me like, yeah, you have graduated beyond design, beyond research.
Hmm.
Your brain works, probably more at the service design level.
Hmm.
And there are definitely aspects of that I definitely played into. My service design team loves me. I love them. But to actually make the leap, to make the actual leap and apply for the job, I didn't see a possible way for me to do that working full time.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Now, layer on top of that, I had been working 7 years back to back. Um, and for the neurodivergent brain, it's exhausting. It's every
Hmm.
Hmm.
day is exhausting at the end of the
Yeah.
day. And so after 7 years, I'm like, you know what? I need a break. If I want to become a designer, I will freelance or do whatever I need to do to get that under my belt and then go back and apply. And also, recognizing that, well, I accept that my dyslexia is a superpower. How can we start raising the awareness around this superpower about what I'm doing and why it is valuable to the company and why we should be looking at these job roles potentially slightly differently or finding ways to make the best possible use of our differently abled minds.
Hmm.
Not everyone really thinks the way that I think. Hopefully, Meg, there's some story you have that that may resemble that. But that's where I see my value. And the trade-off is that writing a deck doesn't come easy. I have a big brain with big thoughts, and squeezing them down into a persuasive headline in a storytelling format with persuasive bullet points and great visuals is a lot of work for me. It's a
I think it's
lot
a
of
lot of work
work.
for anybody.
Yeah.
I really have bumped up against this a lot. Maybe I'm suffering from the same thing, but I feel like the past few months I have been asked to throw together work that takes twice as long as the time I've been
Mm,
given. And
mm-hmm.
so I end up sort of just doing my best, putting stuff together, and then like I described, working late, getting up
Right?
early, working, trying not to work on the weekends, but just spending a lot of time. And then people are like, gosh, this is taking so long. And I'm like, I chalk it up to a lack of experience when I
Mm,
interact with people who are like, can't you just turn around the whole design end to end in a couple of weeks for us? Like, and I'm like,
mm,
sure, if you want something that's like a first rough draft, but not done. And I think that people just they don't understand how much work goes into the creative process and how many revisions go into the creative process. Like,
yeah.
I think the
Yeah.
revisions is one thing that people do not budget in,
Oh,
and
yeah.
it's
Not at
it's
all.
extremely frustrating. I feel like this
Mm,
has been something that has really I need to advocate better for myself, I think. But it's been very tough to get. I'll have things where they have a few days notice and they want,
mm-hmm.
you know, a
So,
a presentation or whatever. And it's like, oh, come on. This is going to take a
yeah.
long time.
Well, and if I can parlay that over to me as well, I love that because people come to me, and I think this is actually a blindness of maybe leadership is, that work in between the work. When
Hmm.
in research we get this a lot. What do you know about mobile? And I remember getting these questions all the time. What do we know about mobile in our data? I'm like, oh, like a ton, but it's all
Mm-hmm.
over. What do you want? And they're like, can you give me
Mm-hmm.
some bullet points by tomorrow? And I'm like, do you understand what
Mm.
that means? Do you understand
Mm-hmm.
what is your question beyond just like mobile usage, And then of
Yeah.
course, if you layer in a dyslexic brain on that, where we can see the big picture, it gets even harder to narrow that down to specific points without a specific ask or a conversation, really.
Mm-hmm.
If
Mm-hmm.
I can, if I can share one metaphor that I love. So number one, dyslexic brains are great at metaphors. But when I think of research in the design process, I actually think about newspaper puzzles. And
Mm.
if you
Like
are
crossword
both,
puzzles?
yeah, that's one of the examples. So the first one I'll start with is Sudoku. Are
Okay.
both of you familiar with Sudoku?
Hmm.
I
Right.
am unable to play it, but yes, I am.
Okay. Well, imagine you're in the wireframing process, right? And my brain sees that as the Sudoku puzzle. But what you have to imagine is that Sudoku puzzle is completely filled in, which means all the numbers are currently aligned and currently in place. Now imagine you have somebody that comes in and says, you know that bottom right box in the Sudoku puzzle? I want to change that center number to a 7.
Hmm.
Well, what does that mean? That means
Every
the
other number
line
has to
going
change.
exactly. So if you come to me and say, I want to change the bottom right box, the mobile UI, I want to change this button. Okay, wow, what does that mean? That means our desktop UI has to
Hmm.
change. That's the box all the way to the left, and the desktop UI has
Yeah.
to
But
change. That means
Troy,
marketing.
that's out of scope. We just can't do that right now.
This is the problem. And it's even harder with a researcher because we are not focused on like a single button. We are
Mm-hmm.
focused on the breadth of the experience. And so my brain holds all of this in it, right?
Hmm.
And my Sudoku puzzle in my brain goes outside of the standard box, right? It's like to the left for the desktop and then
Hmm.
up to marketing and then out to advertising. You know what I'm saying? Like it's this web or network, and you're like, I want to change just one little thing, and why is it so complicated? And it's because it's a Sudoku puzzle. It's hard, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's really hard. The crossword puzzle example, by the way, is my analogy for usability. So, can you go through the crossword puzzle and complete the tasks and have everything line up? That would be my metaphor for a usability study.
Hmm.
And then my metaphor for foundational research is, do you remember, like, it's probably in high school, you had these logic puzzles. Four people went to dinner.
Oh yeah.
Uh, they all had different meals and they wore different hats.
Hmm.
John sat next to the person with the purple hat. Betty ate the salmon. You get these four statements, right? And you have to cross them all together to figure out the
Yeah.
big picture. That's foundational research. Like you don't get every single answer from one interview, right? You have to
Hmm.
cross-reference all of these interviews together. Who is it? This person wanted to buy this house in this zip code because of their mom. This person wanted to buy a spare bedroom because of their future child. This person, and you have to bring that all together to make a whole
Mm-hmm.
picture. So
Hmm.
foundational learning is a logic puzzle. UI and structure of the product is Sudoku, and
Hmm.
usability is crossword puzzle.
And do you in
Gosh.
your normal life, do you like these puzzles? Is this something that like your brain likes to do?
This is what nourishes me. This
So
is
like
absolutely what nourishes me.
on the side, you're doing actual Sudoku.
Oh, sorry.
That I guess that was the question.
While you're
I
waiting for
meant.
someone to click the button,
Yeah.
you're like, oh.
I don't
I
mean it
do.
like at work. I mean like, like
Yeah.
you're going to bed and you're like, let me do
I tell you what.
the
I
Wednesday
tell you
puzzle.
what. Um, Logic puzzles, actually, yes. I'm a nerd. I'll do those at night. Sudoku puzzles, also a nerd. Crosswords, if it wasn't spelling, I would absolutely be into
Oh,
it.
yeah,
I would
because the
absolutely be into it
yeah,
if it wasn't spelling.
that's fair.
Um,
That's super fair.
but
Hmm.
but to abstract one level, all of these things that nourish what nourish my brain and what I do consider my superpower. How many people do you know like these logic puzzles and say I do these casually on the side?
I do. I mean, I only know one and it happens to be me, but that
This is why
that
we get
Yes.
doesn't
along.
that the ratio on this podcast probably does not translate to the population largely, but I do have a book that I got while I was vacationing in England. I went to Bletchley Park, where they
Mm,
had all the code breakers in World
mm,
War. I'm gonna go with two.
yep.
Yeah, I was in the gift shop and I bought one of the I like they were
Oh,
like logic be break
Mm-hmm.
codes, do things. So yeah.
nice.
Anyway, but
Yeah.
Well, Troy,
uh
I wanna learn more about dyslexia. I don't know much about it. And
Mm-hmm.
you shared with us that you were diagnosed with dyslexia kind of later in life. Tell
Mm-hmm.
us what was going on at the time that brought you to seek out getting tested. And then since you have had that diagnosis, how things have changed for you.
Yeah, yeah. So my dyslexia story actually starts 25 years ago in an undergrad class called Abnormal Psych. Not a great
Oh,
name,
that's a
but
standard class, right?
it's pretty standard. The language, the title of the class is not my favorite, but yes, pretty standard. And they covered dyslexia, and they covered it at a like an intro level. It was more about reading, and they were talking about how the eye saccades. It moves back and forth along the sentence as you're reading.
oh,
And I said, "Oh, I noticed that. Okay, yeah, that's me. I'm grabbing letters from the word in front and pulling it into this word, and that's why my brain sees it as a different word and not the word that's actually printed
Oh.
on the paper." And I was like, "Cool, cool. All right." Undergrad, I had my first career in the IT help desk, and then I went back to grad school at 30, um, and learned a lot of tools, which I want to come back to later. But went back to grad school, went into the industry, and under the pandemic, we had the lockdown and we all got squeezed down. Well, I got squeezed down into my little apartment, my little
Mm-hmm.
space with my little monitor and my little keyboard on my kitchen table, and I went bonkers. I went
Mm.
absolutely bonkers. And one of the first things I realized was like, oh, no, I can't read the screen. This is terrible. And then I'm like, oh, Troy, you're also 42. Your eyes might need some help. So did you go
Mm.
and just get an eye check? It was right about that time. And lo and behold, yeah, and after a year, I was still really having a hard time, and there's a lot of contextual things with that, still under lockdown in the pandemic.
yeah.
But I had a coach who said, who I was talking to, and I was like, "Yeah, I'm probably dyslexic. I've self-diagnosed for 20 years."
Mm.
And she said, "Well, why don't you get diagnosed?" And I'm like, "Why? I have an undergraduate
Mm-hmm.
degree. I was successful in a first career. I have a graduate degree from one of the best schools in the world. I work in some of the top businesses. Why should I go get diagnosed?"
Yeah,
And she
great question.
said,
I've heard people say something similar, like
Yeah.
when they wanted to get tested for adult ADD, that people were like, not you, you're
"Yeah,
successful. You have a home, you have a
yeah.
career.
Yeah.
Why
Well, here's the other
I do?
truth. I'm working twice as hard as other people to reach the same level." And then she asked the question I continue to ask my,
I lost
Mm.
Troy.
and I said to
Oh,
myself, no,
oh no, Troy, we missed the question. Your audio broke for me at least.
no,
Right? So
no.
such a cliffhanger right there.
Hold on. I heard it. I
Oh,
thought I
you
heard
did?
it.
Oh shoot. Okay, we'll just cut out my part then.
Okay. All right.
So is this sustainable? And I said no. And she said, and my leadership at my company was actually extremely supportive. They talked to me about possibilities, about jobs. Of course, this was before the nitty-gritty of actually implementing, but we had great ideas about how my big brain could work in different ways across the org. And I was like, okay, fine. And to be honest, I also felt a little guilty walking around saying I'm dyslexic without having an actual diagnosis because it didn't feel real.
Mm.
And so I went and got diagnosed. And as a researcher, the diagnosis process is super interesting. It's a lot
Mhm.
of behavioral timed stuff. And so I nerded out while I was getting diagnosed.
How long did
But it
it
can't,
take? I'm just curious. Like, was it
yeah,
multiple sessions or
yeah.
what's the
So the particular set of testing I did was able to be completed in a 6 hour in-person testing.
Whoa.
However, I will say that that is on the shorter end of the testing scale since I was an adult. For kids and students going to college, it ends up being like 3 6 hour days of testing because colleges need more proof and more detail
Mm,
around the accommodation that's needed.
Mm.
But for me, it was, if I remember, it was like $3,000 and 6 hours of sitting there putting puzzles together. So I thought it was fun. It was
Wow.
exhausting. There was reading involved and then
mhm,
recalling and summarizing, and that's all the stuff that I'm not great at. And I'll pivot back just to one comment. So, Meg, if you love these logic puzzles,
mhm.
now write a paper on how you solve them. you know
No.
right, like take everything that's in your brain about how you do this stuff and put it down on paper. That's where my dyslexic brain breaks down. Right, it's like
Yeah.
I can do
Okay.
this stuff no problem.
Uh-huh.
Explain how I got there. Oh gosh, wow, that is so hard to pull apart.
Yeah.
So it was actually 2021, a year into lockdown. I was in San Francisco in my little apartment, and I decided to go and get tested. Um, my leadership was a great support, and it came back with really interesting. Us researchers just loved it. Reading the
Mm.
report, it's probably about 5 pages long.
Wow.
And then I kind of sat on it because work changed. It got a little easier. I fell into a groove. Um, and that was kind of the biggest impetus to actually just go and get tested was that stress under lockdown um,
Mm.
really drove me there.
Mhm. Well, let's jump ahead where we want to know kind of like what you're doing now, what your thoughts are and how you're bringing it kind of like back to the workplace or UX in terms of where you're at now.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you for asking. So I'm a month into my sabbatical, and I went into the sabbatical with big ambitions. I'm going to do research on neurodiversity and UX. I figured start where I am in the UX field in my own brain and dyslexia. I'm going to interview people and learn all about what their needs are and then go back and influence the industry. And guess what? That's a lot of work.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And after talking to some PhD people, I'm like, oh, that's a PhD job. That is like what I was
Mm-hmm.
trying to do in this past month was really overambitious. And so I looked at a lot of options of what I would do and how I could move this forward. And after realizing I'm still exhausted, I decided my current course of path. And if I look at this from a long arc, a 10-year arc, the first step I think is just sharing my story,
Mhm.
getting it out
Yeah.
there. For people who are neurodivergent or any type of different wiring, there's a common phrase I heard in my conversation so far, which is, I feel absolutely brilliant and absolutely stupid at the same time.
Mhm.
And
Oh
I've
my
reached a point in my
gosh.
life. I've had 25 years to absorb, the first 20 years of self-diagnosis and then the last few years of actual diagnosis, where I
Mm-hmm.
realize the power of my brain. Everyone I talk to comes to me for a reframing, for seeing things differently. Everything I build makes people think differently. And you know what? I decided to drop that stupid part. I
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
am I am brilliant. And I hate to say that because I know people that say that and I don't like it, but you know what? Holding on to that stupid part isn't serving me, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
And if I had a colleague who is my moral compass and my, just one of these amazing people. And she was a homegrown researcher. And we met in 2019. We started working in 2019. And I came in with my, the big brain and was explaining to her research concepts and design concepts. And she's like, dude, this is really overwhelming. And so I
Mm.
adapted my communication style to her to pace it along and help her come along with me. And about a year in, I was telling her, explaining something. And I was like, oh, is this making sense? Oh, is this making sense? And she's like, dude, just keep going. And I was like, I want to make sure you understand. I don't want to overwhelm you. And she's like, you know what, Troy? If people aren't understanding what you're saying, it's their problem because
Mm.
what you're saying is groundbreaking.
Whoa. Nice. That's a nice
And
compliment.
it is. And she has stuck with me and she has learned. She unlocked, there's a new old method out there, OOUX, and she didn't
Mhm.
understand it. And I explained it to her because my brain understood it immediately
What is
without any
OO?
training. So
Actually,
OUX,
yeah, I feel like I need a better like
ah, sorry, sorry,
yeah.
I don't want to rat hole in there, but I will give you the kind of the
Yeah.
basics. Object-oriented UX, and maybe the best way I can describe it from a classic design standpoint is you go through and you find all of the nouns in your product. What are the nouns, and then what are the verbs that are actions on them? And
Mm-hmm.
all of the nouns have a hierarchy. Now, this isn't page IA. This is like conceptual I. It's conceptual
Mm-hmm.
IA. I have a
Mm-hmm.
contract. Inside of that noun contract is a noun closing date. And I also have a noun transaction price. And so you have all
Mm-hmm.
of these nouns that have a contract lives within inside of a transaction,
Yeah. You're
right?
just making a data catalog basically.
It's
It's like you're mentally designing the API in your mind.
I think an API is a very close way to describe it. Engineers love, love, love this way of thinking. It is the way that they think. It's their data model. And we as design, it's actually a method that was back in the like 2000s. I remember reading about it. And then Sophia Prater has reinvigorated it and brought it back to life. But the hierarchy and the classification fits a dyslexic brain really well.
Hmm.
I didn't even need to learn it. I saw it, I understood it, I can move forward with it.
Yeah.
It's a powerful tool, but not everyone gets it. And Sarah, my coworker, asked me at one point, she had a problem she thought it'd be good for. I shared it with her. She took it back to her engineering team and it unlocked for the entire team what they were trying to do. It
Hmm.
was explosive. And she came back to me and said, thank you so much. Thank you for your brain. Your ability to teach me that model
Thank you for
helped me
your
understand
brain.
that. Yeah. Yeah. And, for me, that's just more credibility that I'm I'm not in the wrong here. I'm not the dysfunctional person. My brain is actually freaking great. Question is the job role, the org structure, the business structure, all of
Hmm.
those other things that I have to fit into to try and leverage the most power the power of what I have, you
Mm.
know?
Hmm.
And
Yeah, and
now Meg,
this, yeah, I was just going to
good.
say this echoes a lot, or this echoes kind of what somebody might see in UX as they're doing accessibility work in like in the product itself. A lot of like the training materials and stuff, at least the
Mm,
newer stuff, is all around like um a disability is not the fault of the person, it's actually the fault in the environment or the context that's
right.
not accommodating to
Mm.
differences in abilities or differences in ways of thinking. And so it's actually I was reminded earlier this week that it was actually Global Accessibility Awareness Day. So it's kind of, we didn't plan for this, but it's kind of
Hmm.
kismet, I guess, that we have you on this at this time of the year. So
All right. It's September.
yeah. So yeah, sorry, what were you saying?
Oh, I mean, I think all I was going to do is point back to that logic puzzle again and
Yeah.
say, if your brain is really good at that logic puzzle, why are you writing out? Like, where's the meat of what your work is, right? Like, it's
Hmm.
figuring out the logic puzzle. Yes, you have to communicate. I understand.
Hmm.
Totally
Well,
get
one
that.
of the things that I feel like I learned recently was good managers are supposed to push your strengths and not focus on your weaknesses. And I never had heard that way of thinking before. Like, oh, you're not good at this. Well,
Hmm.
you need to beef up that area
Yeah, that's
versus you're really good at this. So let's have you keep doing that. And
right.
then we'll round out the team with some other skills so that we don't need everybody to be good at everything, which is not
Right.
realistic
We
anyway.
wouldn't say like, oh, your arm is broken. Just try to keep using your right arm. It's okay. Like we'd
Mm,
get another person to do whatever we needed the right arm for, or
Mm,
right.
build a robot or something. I don't know.
And
yeah.
you both are hitting the nail on the head when it comes to me in the current, and I'm going to say industry-wide job roles and descriptions, right?
Mhm,
They're pretty standardized. They're pretty square boxes that you have to fit into. And
mhm,
my brain literally doesn't think that way. It thinks horizontally and networked.
mhm,
And so how might we start adjusting the way we structure our work, the way we structure our skills within an org and a team that just lets everyone's natural abilities bubble to the top, you
mhm.
know?
Troy, what would you say to any of our listeners who are struggling with maybe a diagnosed or undiagnosed, neurodivergence issue that may help them? Like, what advice would you give our listeners?
This speaks more to the human, but look at what nourishes you. Find what nourishes you and what makes your brain feel good.
Mm-hmm.
And then keep that in proportion to the things that don't necessarily nourish you.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mhm.
when you find yourself at a balance that's much lower than that, where the nourishment is only 10%, and that's where I was, and the non-nourishment was 90%,
Yeah.
it's
You're
time
not
to
in the
start
right.
thinking about, yeah,
Yeah.
you have to think about something different. And I'm not saying
Mm-hmm.
leave, I'm just saying start thinking about what the balance is that you need to be sustainable.
Mm-hmm. I love that.
Yeah, that's
Troy,
great.
thank you so much for coming on the pod with us this week. We really enjoyed having you. Folks, if you need advice or sympathy for your UX career, we are listening. Bye bye.
See ya.
Thank you.
Surviving UX is hosted and edited by Jessamine Edwards and Meg Kramer. Our theme music is, among other things, the on-hold music for Cisco phones, Opus Number 1 by Tim Carlton and Derek Deal. Thanks for listening. Now, get back to your multidimensional Sudoku puzzles.